Welcome to Music Ed Tech Talk, a podcast about music, education, and technology. I'm your host, Robbie Burns. Well, in the event that I use this part, maybe we can explain our setup briefly, and then you can, because I have a question about how you're experiencing me right now. So I have you on mute on a FaceTime call so that I can see your persona.
Okay.
You're wearing the Apple Vision Pro.
Yeah.
We are both talking through a Zoom call on our respective Macs, while simultaneously on an iPhone
Yes.
FaceTime call. Now, I am viewing your persona on my phone, but on my Mac, you're wearing you're wearing the Apple Vision Pro. Are you doing the thing on your Mac with the giant, where you have like the Mac display appearing to you virtually? Giant? Like, are you looking at me on a giant
No,
virtual Mac
this
display?
is a Hackintosh that I'm talking to you on. So no, I don't have that on this
Isn't
computer.
one of the things with the Hackintosh that's hardest to get set up the continuity features?
Yeah, continuity is actually working on this one. It's the requirement for an M1 or higher for the Mac rendering. Yeah,
Okay.
it's kind of crazy how it. I think that if you read the interviews with some of the designers of this, like, um, there's a couple versions of it they made internally, and one of them is not a standalone computer. And so when you connect to the Mac, I'm pretty sure it's using the mode from the needs to be tethered to a Mac version of it.
Hmm.
So the renderer is actually on the computer when you do that, and that's why it's like you actually have to have the newest system to do the big wraparound one that they showed off. They haven't released that for the public yet, but yeah, I mean, Mac Virtual Display works so good. It's so good, but I'm not using it right now.
So I guess the question is, since you've invested in the Apple Vision Pro, I know that the one of the last times we spoke on the show, even you were talking about that you were one of the few people who foresaw that the Apple Vision Pro was all about the display. It was all like that the seeing your Mac virtual display, having a giant computer display was the one of the secret sauces or the at least it was, and we saw it hinted in like all the leaks of the hardware and stuff, all these like display panel leaks and stuff. So like now that you have this thing, do you want to buy an M1 chip Mac to have that?
I mean, I have it. Like, if I were on my laptop, I'd be
Oh,
going
okay.
that way.
I'm forgetting you have a
But
secondary MacBook.
I have too many computers in this household. But yeah, I mean, it works brilliantly on that. But the yeah, the big screen monitor with my stuff here that's sitting at the desk. It's just, yeah,
So are you
I've
viewing?
already got a big screen here.
So I actually misspoke earlier. I'm on my phone for the FaceTime, but you're actually seeing me in the Apple Vision Pro.
I am, yeah. So
Yeah,
you
because
are
otherwise
a
I.
little window right here next to my real screen.
Okay, okay. Um, very very cool. And
Yeah, and yeah, there's the little virtual floating screens things. It's very, um, I mean, for me, it's like very sci-fi. Like, they don't have a way, like a mode yet, where it kind of follows you around. But if you pinch and pick up the window and walk around the house, it like follows you as if it's like this little display heads up thing that like it doesn't employ anything that like does that. It's like the windows are all nailed down in space, but it's kind of fun if you like pick it up and move around. It's like, oh, interesting. Like it's a whole thing. It's like this could be like a little, like the only the AR stuff that's on it. I'm sure you watched like the Verge review on it and stuff like that, but like, like if you have a Mac, it like floats a little icon next to it that moves around with the Mac that says connect. This new beta, if I do this with my hand, it's like a little home buttons following my hand around. And if I do this, it's like a little magic trick I have to do. Like I have to go like hand, flip over, and now I've got the time and the battery and stuff like that. So it's like little stuff like that. It's like they're working it in slowly as we get used to it. Because I don't know if you tried one out at the store. It's kind of overwhelming to just try one out. 30-minute try on.
I did the demo. At the time it was very focused, and I didn't have a lot of freedom. Though I hear that the demo experience is much more open now. Like you can do it for a shorter period of time. You can like spend more time in a certain app if you want. I even hear that they're working out a way for you to see your own camera roll in spatial spatial video.
Oh man, that's so good. You know what I wish they would do is when you do the demo, the guy at the Apple Store has this iPad that has some kind of helper app where it's like guest mode plus kind of where he's like able to get you back home. He's able to just pull things up for you. Oh my gosh, you need that so bad when you let somebody try one of these on because it's like even if you do the guest mode and you AirPlay it to a TV or something, it's like you can't see anything when they're watching a movie. So it's like that's like the big demo is watching that little trailer that's at the end. Like that's what blows people away every time. But it's like I wish I could just like get them there, but I have to talk them through it. I have to say, okay, I'm shutting mirroring off now, and now can you find the icon? Can you scroll to the? It's a whole thing right now. It's a little messy.
Yeah. So what are you using this thing for mostly? Is it a lot of movie watching?
Man, okay. There's a couple times where I feel like I like lug it out. Um, Watching movies solo is a definitely good use case of it. Um, how often I get to watch movies solo is kind of up in the air. What I have been, it's undeniable that like a good use for these things is playing video games. Um, so I actually have like a PlayStation emulator on here that I'll just like bust out a controller and play some Wipeout. I was trying to
Which one is
100%
that? Is
it
that
like I did
run
in
natively on
college.
the Vision Pro?
That's the yeah, it's what is it? RetroArch.
RetroArch.
Um, yeah, whatever that one is. Yeah. So
Would
yeah,
you
I've
have like a
been using
Bluetooth
that.
controller set up directly with the Apple Vision Pro to control
Yeah,
it?
yeah. Um, Doing the Mac screen mirroring outdoors is like I feel like a total idiot doing it, but it's very nice to like sit outside on the porch, and these are like sunglasses too, right? Like they auto do exposure for
Huh.
you, so it's like you put these on in a bright sunny day, and you look like an idiot out there with your thing on. But if it's like headphones, it's like eye headphones kind of, so like you throw that on, you can actually work on your laptop in bright sunlight if you want to.
Okay.
um so like I like a lot of the time website work, I just like did that sitting out in the lounge chair outside, and my family's inside like, oh my gosh, dad is so embarrassing. But um and
So
yeah, I mean, it's music ed tech talk. Like there's a couple of those like iPad helper apps that connect to hardware, and using those kind of apps with this thing is kind of a game changer. I've got an OPZ that has this optional screen app that it's a funny app to use because it's like this device is like it's like a little synthesizer groovebox thing that has like no. Here, I'm recording my view. You can see it in my Vision Pro.
yeah, well that
Um,
those devices have already been pitched to me as like the airplane digital audio workstation. And so
exactly, yeah, and this has a really robust helper app that I feel like a lot of people don't know to use it, um, and so they end up with kind of a it's like a confusing device with a lot of shift button functionality at first, but like when you know what everything's doing, if you have a little heads up display, this thing can do that. So like, if I'm walking around the studio or something, I can like have the DAW screen follow me around and stuff like that. It's a little, funky and new, but it is kind of cool. I feel like Michael Douglas in Disclosure, where he's like walking around the file system and
yeah, yeah.
Demi Moore's trying to kill him or whatever.
Yeah. That's so yeah, and the other use cases I've seen, like Fourscore has an app, a native app for it. And I know I've also seen like John Mackey uh, did a Facebook post demonstrating him basically doing the Mac display, but like pinching his Mac display with a full like 3-page span of his Sibelius composing workflow, but he had
Yeah.
like pinched the screen and set it right on top of his acoustic piano in his studio so that he had just a giant
Yep.
3-page spread of his score right on top of his piano. So there's cool stuff, but it still to me seems
And
very
what's amazing
modal.
is when you do that, it just yeah. Well, I mean, when you do stuff like that, it stays pinned, so it is useful. Like that's something they nailed. Is like the window of you that I'm looking at is exactly like an inch away from the display, tilted the same way. Like no matter if I move around, if I got up and walked around, like it stays there. So yeah, I mean, it's is it modal? Yeah, I mean that demo they show where the guy has like 10 windows around him, often the way it gets like that is the thing you were doing before. You'll just like move it and move it and move it aside. There's not really any window management, so it's like the one that's in front of you is kind of the one that you want to do. So like you end up with this like panopticon feeling of like I'm over here now, and I'm over here now. But like I don't know, a lot of the times I'll just end up just recentering it and just move everything back to the center because yeah, I mean it's like what you're looking at is definitely the king. I gotta say like that I didn't get during the demo and I do get at home. The environments freaked me out like crazy during the demo. I was just like, get me out of here. And like because it was an Apple store, it was crowded and stuff. At home, just like laying on the couch and you turn on, the moon or something and you're just like looking at the stars. I mean, sometimes I just do that. Like the meditation app is just like actually good in this thing because it takes you through this whole immersive thingy that's like very relaxing and it follows your breathing and stuff. It's like totally space age.
The funny thing though is that that app has the reputation on the Apple Watch of being like so annoying. It's like, did you meditate today? It's just one of those things that
Yeah,
you
I
turn
know.
off.
Yeah, exactly. It's a totally different experience. I guess this was one. My wife used it to like do like when you do like a workout, like a yoga or a Pilates or something, and it's like you're trying to keep your head up and look at the TV the whole time.
Right.
She was able to just like have it right in front of her the whole time
So
and
she's
do the
wearing it,
workout.
doing yoga, and what is? Are you
Yeah.
just running? Is she running the fitness app, the iPad version of the fitness app on the Apple Vision Pro? Is that what's happening?
No, she's just like go to a YouTube video.
Oh, I see. Okay,
Yeah. Yeah, there
that's
is no fitness functionality on this thing yet.
so. But it's still pretty big. So I guess my question is like, do you think maybe I'm thinking too big picture? We can talk about the nuts and bolts more if you want. But I'm wondering like, when does Apple or do they at this point even want to put this? I figure they want to, but like, is anywhere in the near future are they working towards putting this into a pair of glasses like what you're wearing on your face?
Oh
Well, I guess you're not
yeah.
actually. Or actually, hold on. Are you
I
wearing
My
glasses underneath of that
glasses
thing
my
or no?
glasses are right here. Yeah, I mean I can't wear my glasses underneath here. You gotta
It's just so
buy
funny
the
because your
little
persona
lenses
has
that
them.
I know. I was able to finally find glasses in there that look like my real glasses. Um yeah, I mean that's obviously the goal. And like with all this pass through stuff, if it didn't have to use cameras for that and it was just like see through, I don't know. I think that might be why they called it Apple Vision Pro because the Pro is like you can fully immerse yourself, and the non-Pro would be like it just overlays the windows, and that's why like it's so emphasis on windows, like on little floaty windows around.
Because
Because
I
like
want floaty windows, but I don't want to be immersed in a virtual reality headset. And it seems like because I've been like looking at I owned the first generation of those Facebook Ray-Ban glasses, and
yeah,
I ended up returning them because the speaker audio was kind of loud to the external world, but I've heard they really improved that on the newer model. And so I'm kind of looking at them again. And I'm thinking like a pair of glasses that's just a regular pair of glasses, but that allows me to clock in and out of some of my apps, even if it's just audio, none of the visual app Windows stuff. Like to me, that's still very appealing to sort of just have that on my face and be able to check in and out. Whereas the
yeah. I mean
Vision
that's
Pro
like
is,
AirPods with cameras, in my opinion. Like
yeah,
the little AI junk that it does and stuff like that. I have a friend who got the it's some Chinese companies like X Real or something. He got these glasses that like all they have is like a USB-C input on one of the stems, and you can just like plug your phone in. There's no head tracking. There is minimal like I think if you use their app, you can kind of keep the window in the same place, but um, otherwise it's basically you play a movie on your phone. It's right in front of you. It just moves around with your head. It's not trying to stay in the same place. It worked surprisingly well and looked not crazy. It looked like a decent effect. Um, I'm 99% sure that's what's coming. But right now, the problem with those glasses, they stick out like this kind of because this display, it almost reminds me of one of those old arcade cabinets where the screen was on the bottom and it was reflecting up onto a bigger thing. That's kind
Right.
of how they work. So like there has to be some kind of a like a real high density display there that's being like magnified through a lens to get it to look right. Um, and yeah, I can see how that would be hard to do, and especially up to Apple's standards, where they probably want to do these glasses with all the eye tracking, hand tracking, pick the stuff up and move it around. That's the key thing that's got to be on all their devices. Like, what is holding back, like, all those reports about the Apple Vision Pro 2 being like suspended and they're working on the cheaper version instead. It's like that's all about the screens. Like the fact that it's made out of metal or glass. This is definitely plastic on the front, but they call it glass because there's probably some loophole term for glass that they know about. Um, but like this is not like wrong the way it is, except that it costs so much. Like you could probably get away with a slightly lower resolution screen just because this is so incredibly high resolution. Now, what's not high resolution about it is the external facing cameras. Those should probably not get worse because I can see, like, right now, I'm looking at your FaceTime window, clear as a bell. All the stuff around it, I can tell is coming in through a camera feed. It still looks good, but it's like when you turn the environment on, it's like you can tell exactly how sharp these screens are. And it's like, yeah, the screens are amazing and they paid out the nose for these things. So like they're probably working on like just getting the engineering on the inside down. Everybody's picturing the outside. Um, the other thing, these ear stems are crazy. Whatever they're doing, like right now they're just doing audio, but they have full Thunderbolt 4 pass through, but none of it's turned on. Like it
Yeah.
just has all these pins that are for later or something, and it's like the developer strap is limited to USB 2 or whatever, but like there's stuff that this thing can do that they're just like not switching on yet.
But what you're describing as a cheaper version of that is still fundamentally a VR headset. And that was when I read the and
Yeah,
watched the Verge review of the thing. That was the thing they kept coming back to is like this is the best VR headset, but it's still a VR headset. It is not a thing that you wear all day long that can be
no,
kind of just passive and off and on when you need it.
they never advertised it as that. I was so confused as to why people were reviewing it that way. It's obvious that's what people want, but like when Joanna Stern wore it for 24 hours or whatever, nobody's meant to wear this for 20. You're meant to wear it for 2 or less hours. Like it says it right there on the packaging, right?
Yeah.
Like it is a VR headset. I mean, and I think that's that's this is something like a professional person could be interested in. Like all those use cases we were talking about that are like, oh, John Mackey did this, and like when I'm working on something that I'm doing for a client, if I need a super high res screen that looks all, it's got the high dynamic range and everything, this is much more portable than say like a Mac Studio display or something. Um, no, it's not. I mean, the thing tells you like don't be moving around too much with this thing. It does let you move around though, um, like compared to like a Meta where it's like stop, make your boundary. Like it does all this stuff that's like, please do not die while using our product. This it does a lot to keep you like approachable at least. Like I think that's the thing is like your family is still going to be like, oh my gosh, get that thing off when you're talking to me. But like at the very least, they can tell you that. Like if you look at somebody in a meta where you're closed off, it looks like you're closed off, or like a PlayStation VR or something. It's almost like, can I talk to them right now? Like, can I approach them? Can they see me? This, they know I can see them, and they're like pissed that I have it on. So it's like we've reached the next level of acceptance where it's like
Uh,
at least they'll tell me that they want me to take it off. The eyes are there, and it's like me and my son have been like talking about it. It's like my son and daughter have very differing viewpoints. Like my daughter is like, just I don't want to see that thing ever. Like, and my son is like, it's a little creepy when you have the eyes on the front, but like I can see that you can see me. At least, it's like there's like some thought for that process. Like I read an interview where like uh, Johnny Ive I think came up with the eyes on the front part. Like he's still consulting on these things, and that was his idea, and it's like he pushed for that pretty hard. I don't think that's going away. People say, "Oh, we'll make the second one cheaper by getting rid of that incredibly cheap screen on the front." No, they're not going to get rid of the incredibly.
yeah,
They're probably just giving that thing away.
the story
Like,
people say
like
is
this
that
is
the
the
Apple
lowest
Watch.
res screen in the
Right, right,
world.
right. Well, it's people compare sometimes this to the Apple Watch where like they threw all this stuff at the wall to see what would stick. Like the original Apple Watch had like all these like personal contact features that like nobody ever used. It ultimately just became about like health tracking and notifications. And so they really over the years leaned into those features and beefed them up. Some people say maybe like Vision Pro will go that path. Like if nobody is using that front camera or wants it, maybe it'll go away. I don't know. We'll see.
I here's the thing. Vision Pro. Why'd they come out with it? Like, like I'm Tim Cook. All right. They show me this incredible thing. They're like, it's going to cost $3,500 at the minimum. Should you release it? And if that's all the information you have, you're not releasing it. That's silliness. Nobody's going to buy it, right? But if you know that the eventual end goal of this is a see-through version and an interaction model that you're not like doing this all the time with your face, then you can kind of see how like that, okay, we're going to need years and years and years of training data to make that reliable for the average person. And we are at a point where we can get that training data through an array of sensors, just like the same where like the early versions of the watch, like you said, uh, had to mothership to the phone all the time, and the apps were just projections of the phone basically. It's like eventually that layer of abstraction can go away. We don't need cameras mitigating between the front and back. We can just have the floating windows and the pinchy gestures. And it's like it's obvious that's what they spent their time on. They're like, well, let's make a platform for this where like most of the apps are not immersive experiences. They're just like see-through things that sit on your table or something. Like there was this cool app that I got the other day that was like it's silly. It's a useless app, but it's kind of fun. It was just like pick your airport that you want to look at, and it has like a circle. It looks like Star Wars that's like sitting on your table, and it shows the airplanes coming in, and you can click on the airplanes
Yeah.
and like pick them up and like look at the details. And it's like that it's like that's an interesting use case for something that's like not a $3,500 headset. That's like informational heads up display kind of stuff, right? So
I
I
guess I
think
get what you're
that
saying. I think
to
just
me the mystery is like why they use the word pro if there's no non-pro
yeah.
version of it. That doesn't make any sense. And the mystery for me is solved using this thing for a little bit. Is like I can, AR glasses that are like the Ray-Bans, but they have images on them, will never fully immerse. They're just not going to. The whole nature of it is that they pass through the light. This thing locks you in, and there are some professional uses for that. Anyway, that's I'm like giving my whole dissertation on this thing because
No,
I
and
feel like I
all of
have
that
a
is
lot of
sound logic.
opinions
It's just
on
that
it.
the only difference is that the Apple Watch, even though it did through projecting the phone apps onto it, like it did a bad job in the first few generations, but it was like the right hardware model for what the software eventually would do successfully. Like having the fully immersive VR headset still, even though they're simulating the idea that you're available to the outside world, it still seems like there's a lot of technology they need to develop and test on people, but it also seems like there's a lot of technology in that thing that might actually be unnecessary for what eventually they want to build, even if it's temporarily necessary to develop and iterate on those sensors and everything. Like a lot of that, like that big giant screen that you're having the world pass through to you on, like that's not going to be necessary for a pair of glasses.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I think they want to make both of them. Like, I think they do want to make a cheaper version of this, and the eventual goal is the AR version. And I think they would both run the same system, Vision OS. That's my thought on it. Is like they're because like you know, the obvious killer app. The reason that people buy this thing at all is watching movies on it is amazing, and it's like watching movies on something that's like just dim is not going to be amazing. It's just like physically not going to be amazing.
And I
But
think
this
people who
pretty
haven't tried one on do underestimate how good movies look inside of it. Like they
it's
look
so good.
very
It's
good.
incredible. It is. I mean, it's you know, I've gotten at first I was like playing around with just like putting the window places. The two places that I'll like to watch a little clip of a movie or something is like I'll either like lay down, put it on my ceiling, and that's incredible because the whole weight of the thing goes away. Um, and sometimes when I'm doing that, or if I'm like in a laying or sitting position, I'll do the like front row on the floor version of the theater. So it's like I'm just looking up, and it you know it really it's kind of cool. It just reminds you of being in a movie theater really well. It's like it's crazy.
That's pretty wild. I'm gonna make two changes to
So
my setup
that's
real
the
quick.
Vision Pro.
That's yeah, that's a good no, it's
Okay, I
really
was gonna say
helpful.
if we're done when we're done with the Vision Pro topic, I
All right,
could
let me
take
turn
this
you. I'm
off.
gonna turn you off my FaceTime then, and because my Wi-Fi is terrible right now.
Okay,
So here I
all
go.
right.
I'm leaving FaceTime.
Goodbye.
Now here's my
Okay, and
question:
I'm
Are you
taking the Vision
gonna?
Pro
You're
off
gonna actually
now.
take it off? Okay.
Ooh, getting hot in there.
Oh my. Oh yeah. So you were wearing your
All tangled up in here.
compute. You so you were wearing headphones that are plugged into the
There we go.
Mac while that was happening.
Huh. There we go. Yeah, I was hearing you through Zoom still that whole time. That
Okay,
was a little
interesting.
confusing uh, when FaceTime would lag, but Zoom wouldn't lag.
Yeah. Um, for sure.
Oh my
Okay.
goodness.
Whew. The pods, whatever they call them, the things that sit on your ears, right over your ears,
Audio
but don't
pods.
actually go in your ears, are
No,
ridiculous. They are.
they're so good. Yeah, I mean, I was looking at them a little closer. It's like this thingy, the silver flat part, that's a bone conduction speaker, and then it also has for the high end, it has this other like actual speaker. So it's like a combo bone conduction and regular speaker, and it works incredibly well. I would say my biggest gripe of the design is the magnetic light seal thing. This sucks. Like that I have to start the demo by saying, "Don't pick it up, don't touch it, don't touch this,
Yeah.
don't touch the part that looks like you should touch it." Like this I get that they had to make a bunch of versions of it. I feel like honestly, if you were to make a cheaper version of this, it's like there's savings to be had inside of this part, but having 5,000 SKUs for these things, that has to be a huge operational cost. You know, like do I need a 33W or a 21W or a I mean, that's insane.
Is it as easy as the getting your Apple Watch band sized? Because I did that once, and that was pretty seamless. Like where you
I
just give it a number on the website, and it tells you how to measure your wrist without even having like measuring tape nearby.
well, I mean, you did the demo, so the way you measure it is actually with a phone app. You scan your face,
You
and
know, that was okay. So it was seamless because I actually forgot that that happened in my demo.
yeah, and that was not capturing your persona. But if you notice that your eyes were showing through, there is generic eyes that are more obscured
Huh.
that show your blinks and and your gaze direction and stuff. Um, once you do your persona, you get the more realistic eyes.
Oh, I didn't realize there was a distinction. That's interesting.
Yeah, you get this like shadowy ghost eye thing that you can still tell there's an eye there, which is kind of cool effect. I almost want to just have the regular weird eyes, but um, yeah, the magnetic light seal's an issue. A lot of people that have these are experimenting with using it without the light seal and stuff like that, like putting like a one of those forehead headbands on it and stuff. Um, I mean, I don't know if I'm that crazy, but like I don't know. I experiment with this other thing. This I thought was interesting. This is the default strap that they're doing in all the new countries for the new demos. So when you see all the like, Apple Vision launched in Asia, they're all using this.
Yeah, isn't
And
that
we didn't
the
even get to
more
use that
comfortable
one.
one, most people say?
Yeah, maybe. I mean, I don't think it's more comfortable personally. Um, I think that's why they shipped it with both. I think it's the because this one does take a little pressure off, but because this isn't as wide as the other part, it's like the like where is the pressure? Like what's the angle of it is different. So like with this band I can adjust that easily by just like shifting this up and down, and it'll like make it feel like it's more on my forehead or more on my cheeks.
Huh.
Where this one it's like it's on your cheeks. Like I don't know. Maybe I think it's different for everybody though. It's like this doesn't just look better. I think that in some cases it is better. This is the one that definitely messes up your hair too. This one doesn't mess up your hair. So if you had hair, I've never had that problem, but so I've been told.
All right. Well, that's an exciting review. Thank you for that. How many of your devices are you running beta software on right now?
Vision Pro and my laptop and my iPad and my phone and my watch. Five
everything.
devices. Everything.
Yeah, I've got it on everything except the Mac. Should I put it on my Mac, or is that reckless and silly?
I thought it was for the software I'm running, like this is the most gentle update in years on the Mac.
I just really want to use that iPhone app.
That is there and it works very well.
Okay.
It's a little freaky the first time you get an iPhone notification in
Yeah.
Notification Center and you're like, where'd that come from? And you click on it and it opens up your phone. That's crazy.
Yeah. How does it handle the different, because like on the iPhone, there's like different, based on your notification settings, you have things that ping you, you have things that kind of like only show up if you swipe up, you have things that are in that daily review, like what level of notification actually will pop up in the upper right corner of the Mac?
If it's the banner style, it'll pop up.
Okay.
From what I can tell. So just the stuff that is a banner. And that's where it gets a little confusing is you have some apps that are on both devices, and messages is going to open up in messages on the Mac where, you know what I mean? Like it's
so
like,
do you get, if I text you, and you're on the Mac, do you see 2 notifications?
No, it filters it out perfectly, but then a Facebook Messenger will come in and then.
Well, okay. There's probably stuff a
again.
developer can do to mitigate that, but will every app do it? Like if you have a slight variant of your iPhone app that's not, that the code is different than maybe your Mac version, maybe 2 notifications come through, that might be annoying.
I don't know. I feel like there's something system level that's making sense of it. Like the I haven't noticed anything that's like real quirky like that. Like I didn't get any Papa John's notifications or anything. So.
Okay.
I feel like they might be doing some like filtering of what's okay to pass through to the Mac.
I find that I think the betas are all, for me, other than battery life being kind of tanked, I think they're all so they're all fairly smooth for me. And given how many things they've done to the home screen, that's usually what breaks the iPhone and the iPad is when they make big changes to the home screen, which they did for this version. And of course, the Apple Intelligence stuff isn't out yet, but when it is, this is I think a fairly substantial iOS update, and I just feel like everything is actually pretty smooth. Like I haven't had any notable issues other than battery life.
The last beta, I think beta 2 had a weird icon issue.
I did have that, but that didn't keep me from using my phone.
Yeah, they ironed that out in beta 3. The whole thing where it's making dark icons for everybody else is trippy. I love that.
I kind of like it though, because some of those app developers aren't. You're like, the YouTube app is on my primary page, and it looks so out of place on the first version of the beta as like a bright white red icon. Right. And I feel like Google is going to be the last company. That's going to be the last icon that's actually going to get a proper dark mode icon. So I'm kind of happy that Apple is forcing their hand a little bit.
Yeah, exactly. I think that Microsoft's Outlook has some kind of exception right now, but I don't know. It's doing something to detect the background and do a mask, and it's kind of cool. Whatever, however they're doing
So for
that.
those not on it, if you have dark mode ever on, or like if it automatically switches to dark mode when the sun sets, then your app icons from Apple will now change to darker versions of those apps. And the third party app has the option to set a dark mode icon, but none of them have done it yet because this is beta software. So in the current version of the iPhone beta, Apple will change the third party app icons to dark mode versions of themselves using, like, for example, the Facebook one, it's kind of like saying, okay, you're blue with a white F in the middle. Well, we'll take the blue part, which is most of the app icon, make that black, and then make the white part blue so that it's still kind of borrowing from the same color as the other one, but mostly black. And it's doing this for several apps. There's a couple where it doesn't know what to do, so it just sort of darkens them. Like the Audible app is just sort of a darker orange, but otherwise the same.
Right? Yeah, yeah. The darker mode.
I appreciate it because I've got one of my screens is a bunch of like home automation apps, and like I've got like the Twinkly app on there for like some automated Christmas lights, and like the iRobot app. Those companies are never gonna make a dark mode icon, like.
Right, right.
So I'm fine that.
Oh man, yeah, Twinkly. Oh wow, that's an app that I bust out like once a year.
So we leave our Christmas lights up year round.
Oh,
We just
oh,
the
you're one of
front,
those
just that we have like
people.
a strip of them across the front of the house that we leave up, and we do fun stuff for different. We have this rule in our association where it's like you can't have holiday decorations up within 21 days of the holiday on either end. And I'm like, all right, let's break out the calendar. When is National Hot Dog Day? There is always a
Oh my
holiday
gosh.
within 21
that's
days.
that's literally, yeah, our neighbors have the, like, they're not they're like whatever the professionally installed version of that is, where it's like they look kind of rigid and they're all along their roof line, and then it's like 4th of July, and it's like, oh, what holiday's coming up? Oh, it's Halloween now. We got Halloween lights.
Well, the twinkly ones changed colors. So we did like purple and orange Halloween lights this year, and we're never home for the 4th, but I guess we could do that. I mean, there's like unlimited things you can do with them.
We use those to decorate the staircase at Loud in the library.
Nice.
There's a big spiral staircase in our library, so we put the twinkly lights on it and do the quick map of the app and have big, like cool color chases and stuff going down the staircase.
I want to do like, so we just have kind of our bushes, half of a tree, and then like the front of the house has a single strip. That's like kind of how far ours stretch. We would like to finish the tree that is half covered, but then also I want to get another set and just do basically just do like alongside the part of our house underneath the garage, or right above the garage and underneath the upstairs windows. I just want to have like a giant bed of pixels and then do all that stuff, like, because you can map them out and then the app will depict like leaves falling on the fall for the fall and like
Mm.
all sorts of fun. It's basically just like having a giant low resolution gif on the front of your house.
That's yeah, that's fun. I've never gone all out like that for our house. It's just too much to set up and tear down, and too many ladders are involved for me.
For sure. That's why we don't take them down. Now, if we had a giant wall of pixels alongside of our house, I think our neighbors would. Maybe someone would complain. So
Yeah.
beta stuff is going pretty well for you. It sounds like I enjoy all these new features. Do you have any favorite features that are coming in the fall?
Um yeah, I guess the big thing is everybody's waiting for Apple Intelligence,
Right.
which, even having not used it, their little mission statement thing they had at the beginning, I feel like was very helpful to the cause of, um because I feel like as artists and as teacher artists, we're wrestling with this right now. Um there's the feeling of being replaced, in a way different way than, you know, using a synthesizer or something. It's like there's this very, like, oh, the computer just creates the art now, and just I think one of the mission statements they said was something like preserving the user's agency or something like that, where none of it is creating things from scratch, but it's altering things that you started. Um, and I think that's going to be a key, uh, almost like an Asimov style rule of robotics going forward a little bit, where it's like preserving the user's agency, asking permission before changing things. Like, I feel like that's big, and it makes you a lot more willing to try it, because yeah, as a way to augment the ideas I have, or get me creatively jump started, I think it's great. Um, when it's AI generated slop that came out of nowhere, I have a little trouble with that. But it's interesting to see AI stuff being used. Um, I'm really anxious to try that stuff out, so that's why I put the betas. I know it's not coming out till later this year. It's probably not going to come out until like much later this year. From word on the street is like March maybe,
Some of
but
it, I mean, it's going to stagger what
yeah.
it can do. Well, and the other aspect of this too, as an artist, is that and for me, I'm a like big productivity nerd, so I like to save clicks and taps and use creative professional apps, but not just the ones that make art necessarily, but the ones that make email faster and help me write stuff. And so I love that this is going to be, I don't there's not a lot of AI tools that have or that I'm willing to give access to the information that actually could like improve my workflow. Like the idea that I could ask my phone, what's the name of that podcast that Will shared with me last week, and it would like be able to understand that conversational tone, but also like have the context of our conversation thread. That to me is far more interesting than anything generative. There's that like
Exactly.
viral tweet about like I don't want AI to like make my art so I can spend more time doing the laundry. I want it to do the laundry so I can spend more time making art or something. Like I'm paraphrasing, but that
No,
seems to
no,
be
yeah,
Apple's approach.
that's a great phrase, great way of putting it. I mean, the other thing to think about too is like, AI is good for doing things you don't want to do yourself. If you were planning on, this is the part that artists are, going to have to really reckon with, that I'm kind of in agreement with here, is like, if you were going on Fiverr and hiring some stranger to do a voiceover for you or something, you don't have to do that anymore. Now, if you were the stranger on Fiverr making bank off of voiceovers, you know, you got to go the traditional paths again. So it's like, what does that fall back to? It just falls back to like, you got to be good, right? Like, you got to be Robin Williams now, if you want to be a voice actor. And it's like, well, it was that way, and now it's that way again, kind of. So some of the democratizing effects of the internet are being re-diminished by this stuff.
Yeah. Well,
Um,
and so like I've noticed a lot of ads that come up on social sites use AI narration lately. And to
mhm.
me, I might be different than the average target customer, but to me, that's a big turnoff. Like something that, you know, otherwise was read by a person. I mean, to me, that diminishes the brand value in a way because of how I
Totally.
associate that. But that's also a company that might actually be a job where someone might have hired someone. But like, there's also several things AI can do for me where I was like, no one is out of work because I generated a fun image for a keynote slide that was otherwise just like white with black text. Or like an example, this happened at the end of the school year. We had a kid in our trip from Hershey Park forgot to pack the snare drum back onto the bus. This was his one job. And so he was like, he could take it. I kind of grilled him a little bit for it in class. I had Udio write him a song about how leaving the snare drum on the bus, and I played it for the class, and it was hilarious. It was like this
Uh,
guy with like an Irish accent, like strumming an acoustic guitar, singing about, this. It was like it was a funny moment, but like nobody lost a job because like that just wouldn't have happened if Udio wasn't there.
yeah, that's true. And yeah, same thing. Like, I think in our indoor drum line, they had some narration in the show, and they did the same thing to just type a script in and generate it. Um, I doubt anybody, it's like there were a few people making money doing that kind of stuff, but it's not like it's more than one take if they were doing that. Um, it's not like steady work, and I guess some of the long tail effects are being reduced. Let's put it that way. We talk about like the wisdom of crowds and the long tail strategy and stuff that from the early days of like Web 2.0, and it's like the tail is so long now and so automated that it's like we're almost like mentally filtering it out a little bit now. We're just like, yeah, that's not the good stuff though. That's the AI generated stuff. Um, and I feel like that's what's interesting too. Is like at first, Chat GPT had a lot of people talking about like the mirror test for animals, where can they tell it's a mirror? Can they tell it's fake? Or is that another animal on the other side of a glass window? Um, you know, we uh, we failed it for a little bit, and now we can tell. Like I think that's kind of interesting, where we learn pretty fast what is real and what is not. And uh, I haven't read the book yet, but a quote from it was like, it's the Ray Kurzweil wrote another book that was like the singularity's getting nearer, and he's like, it's fascinating to watch humans evolve in real time, like as the tech world changes. It's like we're literally adapting every year to new stuff that's coming out. Um, and everybody has to go through their own little journey on it. I mean, I was a little. This is so nerdy. I can't believe this is this music ed tech talk, or is this just like tech talk? Because I love the tech talk, but I have to get this out to somebody. But yeah, I was a little down on the AI stuff until I saw the creator in theaters, and I was like, oh, they're nice robots. And like after that, I was like, it's okay. Like I don't know. It's like you just like go through your own little thing where you're just like, is this okay? Yes,
Well,
it's okay. Let's embrace it.
I
Or
think a lot of
or
it gives me hope that like it's sort of a meme in of itself to like recognize something, like if something is terrible art, to ask, oh, is that AI? Like that to me gives me hope that maybe people can discriminate. But I also, one kind of example, and it's anecdotal, but it was like a tweet of a snowy tree landscape, and it was like the headline of it, or the text was like beautiful, so beautiful or something, and this was like a very viral tweet. And one of the top replies to it is, this is made by AI. This is not a real place. This does not exist. This is not a pattern of that snow could land on a tree. And
yeah,
then the poster, who could be a bot, I don't know. But the first reply to that reply is, I don't care. And that to me is maybe where my cynicism enters into the equation. But there's already people who don't care if something is real or not. I don't know if AI changes that, unless it's maybe just a scale issue, like it scales how much fake stuff or derivative stuff is out there.
oh no, this there's a good distinction. Is fake stuff versus derivative stuff. And yes, we know that like AI models derive everything, but derivative stuff can be made by people just as easily as machines.
Well,
And
much more
derivative stuff, I
harder
think, is
actually.
what really that's what really bothers people. I mean, um, if a student of mine like downloads a sample pack and does like a 30 song album of just derivative SoundCloud rap tunes, like they're good. They can be great, but after a while, you're like, he didn't spend any time on this. Like this wasn't special in the way that you know the creative struggle makes something
Right.
special.
It's not.
And
Yeah.
you
Then it's
start
not
to
also.
realize like,
Go ahead.
it's like you start to realize that what makes it's like not the difficulty that makes art special, but the fact that someone cared makes it special. So like, if somebody can pop off a tune that's amazing off the top of their head, that's one thing. But like when it sounds like them, that's one thing. But if you can just become the imitation machine really easily, that's a little less special. Especially if you're just kind of popping them off without any kind of regard. You're just like
What's interesting though,
releasing
and I'll
everything.
bridge this to an educational idea. I do think though, to some extent, and I may be thinking of this more because I, straddling both teaching music creation and the general music classes that I teach, but also in the band world, like teaching performing arts. Like there is an aspect to, like me personally, I'm not going to engage with anything artistic that seems derivative, but I do think there is a part of the teaching process, especially with how much in the band world we repeat things, where, and especially because my students don't actually even always understand the basics. Like there is a certain amount of derivative music making that actually is holds value. Like for example, if my band students can't sound like if they can't play in tune, they need lots of experiences playing the same kinds of music difficulty and maybe the same styles of music. They need lots of repeat experiences doing that in order to develop the technical skill before the technical skill can expand to other musical contexts. So I think there's like something to be said for listening to lots of SoundCloud rap. And I do think though, like the human being the person who is making it is and having a perspective and making it personal, that's important. And so I think we lose that if the whole thing is sort of created. But I do think that the tools necessarily create resistance. Like there's a reason why like certain art forms, like I mean, we have the whole 8-bit chiptune thing has not gone away since it resurged in popularity, and that is completely just a limitation of like what kinds of chips could fit into video game cartridges in the early days. Like so we clearly sometimes the limitations of tools create new things. Sometimes they change the perspective of the creator. But like for me, like automation tools and Logic Pro or Ableton, like those, like I don't, that's just like busy work to me. Like getting, you know what I mean? So like I'm happy that computers can streamline some of it. I guess is there a line
Yeah.
where it's too far or like where, I don't know. People have opinions. People seem to think that AI is like a fundamentally different change in automation and also in like art creation and perspective. Is that
It
where do you
kind of,
land on that?
yeah, I mean, it's, yeah, it is kind of interesting. Like, it's like we're having to think about this and process it in a way that we normally would do over like the course of a lifetime. But it's like, just take like from the beginning of our careers to now, like we were doing stuff and people were like, "Oh my gosh, times are changing." And just like partway through, times are changing again, right? And that's getting closer and closer and closer together every time that happens, every paradigm shift, to the point where I think maybe what Kurzweil is trying to get at, because we're not really evolving physiologically, but we are seeing bigger trends than we've ever been able to see. Think most of human history, your life was going to be exactly like your parents' life, and their parents was just exactly like their parents' life. Now, every generation, it was every generation's different, and now it's like mid generation things change, and people can remember when things changed. Um, and we're realizing like some of art is the creative struggle of like struggling against the limitations of a tool, like you said. Um, but other parts of it are like reacting to new things, and we our reaction time, it's like we don't have the reaction time we used to. So that is like, it's almost overwhelming. You're right, there's like a derivative aspect to like learning how to make stuff. I'm gonna make things that sound like things that I like. um, why did you like those things? I think that's the part that we have to like confront as a human. It's not just can I make anything. It's like, what do I like? What do I like about it? Why do I like it? And usually it's because it reminds you of something from the physical world that you liked. Like it reminds you of dancing, or it reminds you of drumming, or it reminds you of, like, there's something about it that you're like, yes, this is how I feel when I, punch somebody in the face or something. It's like it's like a physical feeling that it's like getting to at you with, which is there. It's kind of an interesting viewpoint to like say, okay, like I'm not just training myself on tools. I'm not just training myself on like how to operate software, how to play an instrument. I'm training myself on like identifying like how I want to feel, and like how does that sound and what sounds like how I want to feel. Um, I don't know. It's deep stuff.
Let me skip in the outline because that connects to something I wanted to kind of get your take on. Like we haven't talked about this in a while, and I've had several years under my belt of teaching with regular day-to-day digital audio workstation software in front of my general music students. I feel like the teaching of the tools is easier to grade and measure than the teaching of how to get your feelings to be accurately portrayed through your music, or even just to teach musical concepts. Like, I guess you can create a rubric for how well someone understands musical form, but I feel like a lot of my grading rubrics, and I helped develop our curriculum for our digital music unit, and we purposefully put a lot of the graded criteria into the like show me how to use this tool thing so that we could leave lots of open space for creativity to be sort of based to have more informal and verbal feedback happening day to day in the class about those ideas. What exactly do you grade when a student turns in a project to you?
Wow. Okay. I mean, I have an answer that's like my official answer,
Okay.
right? Like, I have a rubric, and I tried to break down the rubric to like somewhat reveal what I'm really thinking about when I'm grading it. But like, I break it down into two categories, and like, I'm thinking about the technical demonstration. Uh, what were we trying to do? Did you try to do that thing? Because every project has kind of a creative goal and a technical goal, so that we're experts at using the tools by the end of the class, but we're also uh, exposed to a lot of styles, or we have like kind of a creative tool belt of like frames of reference. Um, so there's the technical aspect, and that could be just like were we trying to make drum beats? Does this have drum beats in it? And even if they're like a jumbly mess, it has all the right ingredients. You know, I picture it's like a cooking class where it's like we were trying to make a cake, and if yours turned out horrible, at least it still had eggs and flour and butter and all that. Um, and then there's the creative, uh, the aesthetic intent, I think is what I call it on the rubric. But this is the human aspect of it, where if a human was listening to this or making this, what are some things they would have done if they cared how it sounded? So this could be on the high end, you know, like you're really pushing creative boundaries or whatever. But on the low end, it could just mean like you listened to it before you turned it in. Like, you can easily turn something in and not listen to it with these tools. And you know, if it has some kind of like sound effect you added that is horribly loud compared to the rest of the song, it's obvious you didn't really listen to it, because any human with a beating heart would have turned that down. And if they didn't know how to turn it down, they would have bothered them enough to ask for help or something. And so that's the kind of stuff where like I'm thinking about both of those things. And you know, generally when I'm actually giving scores for these things, we're getting all the points if we tried. You know, I'm not like delineating this out into like a long paper that I'm handing back to them. I do leave comments on every project. Sometimes just briefly. There's a couple projects that are like the benchmarks where I'll write a longer commentary of what I'm hearing and what I think they should try next. And I want them to focus more on that kind of feedback rather than getting a score. So, you know, I tell them all this up front. A lot of them, it just goes in one ear and out the other, but they know that I'm listening to it, and they know that I care, that they care what it sounds like. So um, at least that's the goal, you know. You never know if that totally lands with everybody, but I do feel like, especially by the second class, like they are expecting feedback, and they want to know what I thought about it. And you know, they're thinking of feedback of their own as they turn it in too. So
Cool. Helpful.
yeah,
That's kind of where I'm at, and I'm trying to figure out more and more every year how to like increase the amount of conferencing time and like verbal and written feedback that can be given. And
yeah,
some of the tools make that easier to do. Like Canvas makes it easier and harder in the sense that it's like easy for me to type it. I don't know that it's also always transparent to them when I type something to, when I like type feedback on an assignment.
yeah.
All right.
Yeah. I'm gonna have to like do kind of a rethink on one of them. I'm teaching the film studies class, which was always I don't know, kind of an underserved class a little bit. Like I helped pitch the idea back in the day, and then somebody else would teach it, and to varying success levels. And none of the people teaching it had like a video background. So now that I'm just like taking it now, they needed somebody to take it. I was like, honestly, I should probably just do this one. Um, so I'm just starting from scratch. I'm like not going to use any of the materials other people came up with for it, because it's like this is going to be a video version of Music Tech 1 basically. We're going to learn Final Cut Pro really well, and it's like what are the basics I would want somebody to have before going into global media. So that'll be kind of interesting to come up with the video version of that, because there are differences. It's like editing is similar, but video is always different. There's no concept of silence. There's no it's harder to have like pre-recorded tropes like there is in music, where you can have a drum beat and a collection of different drum beats and assemble something, where videos a little different. It's a little more about storytelling. It's a little more personal for a lot of people. So, you know, uh, yeah. Anyway, so that'll be kind of an interesting thing to take on this year.
So outside of school, you have developing some developing business
Some
ventures.
developing business, yeah. So I am working on currently renovating a space for this thing called Funkhaus. Um, and essentially, what I'm trying to start is a model like School of Rock, but for music production. So, Funkhaus, Electronic Music Center, at first will be just like a physical place. We'll be able to take like hybrid online classes and things like that too, eventually. Uh, Hopefully, spread to more locations. But this is just started kind of as a side project for right now. Just a place where we can do independent classes and activities, and have in fully functioning studio space that can be rented or can be taught in. Um, and as a physical space, it'll also have some supplies that you can buy there for music production, almost like a little boutique that you can visit. And so uh, this is in downtown Lebanon, Ohio, which is about 30 minutes north of Cincinnati. It's very like old town suburb kind of feel. And you know my idea with it being here, one, I owned the real estate here, and two, um, I feel like in a town like this, a lot of the downtown is focused on leisure activities. And, whether that's antiquing or photography shops or yoga studios, um, a lot of things like that. And, let's have that in a place like this, some music production. So I'm approaching it first as a school and second as a store and studio. But I with a business like this, I'm throwing a few ideas at the wall to see what's the popular idea. I don't exactly know how it's going to turn out, but based on I know there's demand for this. I see that a lot of students are opting out of high school curriculum these days. I see that they have they can go take college classes, they can do programs like that. as in Ohio, as early as seventh grade, they can start getting college credit for things. Um,
Wow.
and when you do that, what I've noticed is that erodes some of the high school experience where they'll go and do activities outside. They'll expect to do them much later than we would at a school. And there's an opportunity, I think, for some of the music education activity to diversify. And we've had periods of time like this where, these things are handled by community organizations and businesses, and other times where the school's handling all of it. And I feel like my spidey sense tells me we're entering a time where the community starts to handle some of this stuff. Um, just as in the early 1900s, 1920s, 1930s, community bands, Boy Scout bands, and things like that, that eventually became drum corps, like that served a need at some point. And I do feel like there's a need for being able to do this in a place you trust that is not at the mandatory school hours time. So, Funkhaus
It's an
Electronic
awesome,
Music Center.
yeah, it's an awesome vision. You've already had some online classes, some like webinar kind of style things.
Right, and the vision for those with Funkhaus is I really I feel like DIY teach yourself is pretty good. It's okay, but there's so much of that already. It's like YouTube is just that basically. Like you can just dial up any function of any software, any style, and just there's some kind of tutorial video made about it. So I'm not interested in that kind of teaching, um, because I feel like there is human value in sitting at the foot of the master. Gathering with like-minded people, creative minds being drawn to each other. Um, in a place where you get to know these other people that are on the same journey you're on. Um, so the online way I'll do the class probably is to do a hybrid online class where they join at the same time as everybody else and they participate in the same way as everybody else. They're just on the screen rather than in the room. Um, and some people, what I've noticed teaching that at the college level music production classes, some people prefer to participate that way because they've got their battle station at home that, has all their plugins and has all their good stuff. And that's helpful, but it's also extremely helpful to them to have a live person that's answering their questions, that cares about their success. Um, and I think there's an opportunity for that. I think School of Rock is exploiting it handily. The gaps that we find in the modern band movements finally catching up to this.
It's so easy to think
Meanwhile,
too that like rock bands are dead until you see the success and look at the success. I have private students who study, for the most part, we're focused on classical percussion. We're supporting their
Mhm.
school band programs and they're learning the total percussion experience. And then I will find out months into the year that they've just been for years enrolled in School of Rock for no other reason other than they want to play in a rock band. And
Yeah.
so for me, I was like starting garage bands with my high school and middle school friends. But yeah, I mean, I think there's definitely, it's interesting too, because I think every community is different, but like we should this is, I don't know if this is like a whole other topic unto itself, but like, I think that digital music making is serving kids in our school system that otherwise would not be served musically. But I can also tell you that at my school, at least where I teach, the choir band orchestra thing is like really still thriving. Like it is, which is should, by the way, for some of the people out there, should be a message to them that building up your music production does not have an adverse competitive effect
No, no. I
on.
think the thing that the music programs are dealing with in our neck of the woods, at least, is we're no longer electives competing with other electives. We're competing with the idea of I don't have to go to school. And it's, by your junior year, you can start getting all your high school credits uh, outside of the school. And if your school has a lot of support and a lot of reasons to be there, like many schools do, it mitigates that a little bit. But if the school is pushing that idea because they they're not interested in serving everybody in person, or they maybe don't have the funds or capacity to serve everybody, and they actively kind of push people out the door early. Not saying our school is doing that officially, but it sure feels that way a little bit. um you have a weird situation, honestly, where, you know, in a given day, most of the seniors are showing up maybe one period a day, if that.
Right.
And, we've eroded the high school experience to some extent. All of the traditions that used to be driven by seniors and upperclassmen, um, it's just a little more bland than it used to be. You can force some of it to happen, but ultimately you're competing with like a whole uh, calculus of finance where they're trying to shave off their college bill a little bit, and it's hard to make the argument that you should hang out with me instead of going, shaving some semester off of college that's going to save you $15,000 or something.
Yeah,
So
it's interesting to kind of look at that all in perspective. Well, I guess all I'm trying to say is, with that in mind, it seems like even as we have opportunities in our public schools, at least where I'm teaching, to learn things like keyboards and guitars and bass, and even our general music curriculum in the district I teach has added a lot of, like, a substantial amount of modern band curriculum. It seems like kids are
yeah,
still
yeah.
finding a lot of value doing this stuff in the community rather than in the public school
Oh
system. So
yeah.
I'm seeing your vision.
Oh yeah. Well, every year I have these, like, we do a festival at the end of the year, and I only really help EMG out. Like, that's like the main band, right? But like there's all these other bands that just come out of the woodwork, and I do almost nothing to help them. I give them studio time. I you know, answer their questions as needed, let them borrow gear if they need it, but these are just independent organizations, really. And that's always how it has been with rock bands, is like they need uh, they need like a support system. Same with the electronic musicians, that they want to do shows, they want to see each other do shows, and they always form some kind of community around it. um, but they need the help, they need the expertise, they need the infrastructure to be able to host an event or pay for gear or whatever. And that's always been my mission with Funkhaus. It seems like if the wind is blowing a little bit, I need to be able to do that still, um, even if they're not at the school anymore. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
it's kind of a funny thing, um, but yeah, I think there's a lot of opportunity for it, and seeing some successful ones in different cities. I mean, there's the big ones in New York and LA, like 343 Labs, um, like IO Music Academy. There's smaller ones like Station Clip in Montreal and Grid Culture in Singapore. Like there's some really good independent live schools out there that are teaching music production along with live performance. And I feel like that's the part that most people, it's the gap for most people that want to produce music. How do I get from that to being on a stage, um, and getting myself really out there in the real world doing this stuff? So those are the kind of things that hopefully we can fill a niche with.
Are there interesting things you can do in a group class with the Ableton link set up, like where you have everybody's timeline sort of in sync with each other and a bunch of people? I'm just picturing a whole class of people in person with like a
Yeah, it's
big,
funny.
bunch of
I've
Mac Pros daisy chained in one big
You
Ableton
can do
rig.
it. I've never tried it though with like the whole class. I've done it with like two or three stations before, but never with the whole class. Um, I should try that this year.
All right. I'd be
I should
curious to
try
know
it.
how it
That'd be,
scales.
yeah. I mean, that's not a bad idea. I should try. I should give that a try.
Right on. Um, do you have any exciting hardware you're playing with these days?
I am playing around with some interesting hardware. I mean, the one that this mic that I'm using is pretty cool. Uh, this is the Teenage Engineering microphone. I've been really into this lately. It's kind of stepped up my home setup for stuff like this.
Yeah, I mean, tell me about it. It certainly looks cool, but
Yeah, it's like the same size as the other field units they make, like the little mixer and the little tape recorder. And these are cool. The mixer especially is helpful at conferences and things. If I'm mixing a lot of audio sources that I need to send to just one output. Um, this mic though is I'm pretty sure it's like one side of a Neumann U87. It's like the same capsule manufacturer at least. Um, and it can be powered with phantom power over a mini XLR cable like I'm doing right now, or it has a battery and like a line out and a USB-C out. So it's a very versatile mic, and it's teenage engineering products are expensive. This one is kind of for what it is. I think it's pretty reasonably priced. Uh, if they made something like a one-sided U87, it would probably cost this much. So, um, but yeah, I'm enjoying it. Hopefully, it sounds good on your end.
sounds great. I
But
stick
yeah,
to
this
my
is cool.
basic. My AKG has been here with me for over 10 years now.
That's a great
I've never
mic.
changed it out. It's a great
That's a
one. Yeah,
great. I
I like
mean,
it a lot.
yeah,
The
yeah. I mean,
P420, I
these are
think it
all
is.
like. I mean, the thing about mics is like the capsule does most of the work, and the electronics can be like big or miniaturized. But, um, I mean, you. This is the first new mic design I've seen in a long time for a large size condenser mic capsule, and I mean, I think they nailed it. This is like, uh, I mean, the only thing is like the size of it implies that maybe it's not as like fragile and expensive as it probably is. But I mean, the mic doesn't have to be this big honker necessarily, but the capsule needs to be kind of a big honker still, no matter what you do. So like, just physics wise. So I think it's kind of a cool idea that they came out with this. And yeah, I've been enjoying it. I've got it running into my Apollo X8 on my desk here. Starting to spec out a studio setup for Funkhaus. So like I'm starting with like real essential items like the interface, the monitors, the first couple microphones, and then we'll work up to the solid state Logic desk eventually. But
Yeah,
that's down the road, not necessary at first.
nice. Speaking of teenage engineering, did you ever buy a Playdate? I don't know if we ever followed up on this.
I bought a play date for my friend
Okay.
for a birthday present. I didn't use it myself. I've gotten to play with it a little bit. That was crazy, by the way. I ordered it and it came like 3 years later or something. Like,
Right.
but but yeah, no, he loves that thing. He plays with it like every day. He always keeps it in his bag when he's going on trips. It's just like a silly little game. The games on it are just like mini games basically, and like that's all you're gonna do on something that size. It's got a display that you can read in daylight. um I thought, speaking of reflective displays, there was that thing that was floating around a few weeks ago. Did you see that? It was like the
This is the like.
humane computer or something, or I forget what it
Is
was
this okay? So
called.
the two things that have been popping up is there's the mini e-ink reader that's like
It's not
phone
that.
size. Okay, and then there's the one that's not e-ink technically. It's like an actual. It's got like
Paper, yeah, it's
yeah,
just a reflective LCD. That's like the Playdate screen.
right. And I think the idea behind that thing is it's supposed to run limited reading software so that you're not as distracted, but it's technically this like not that different than like it could probably run apps similar to what an iPad runs just in monochrome. At what point, speaking of technology sometimes limiting you in a good way, I run into this all the time. I'll take my Kindle out for a walk and I'll read a little, and then I'll think, what would be really nice to read on here is my RSS feed. But you know what? Kindle doesn't run apps. And it's like, all right, iPad mini it is. But then the
Do
iPad
you, do
mini
you
is like,
still have an RSS reader set up?
yeah, am I the only person left on the planet other than a couple of my guests on the show?
I don't know how you're doing it.
um,
Like like all of the apps kind of shut down,
yeah,
and
so, well, okay, I'll shout out two apps. And RSS is the kind of thing that's a service, but you can also find apps that sort of take care of the service and the user interface. Because like Google Reader, see, I think RSS had a bright future until Google shut down Google Reader. This is like basically the idea of like subscribing to your favorite blogs.
Yeah.
I read blogs. Maybe I'm the only person left in the world who reads blogs. But basically, what you can do is there are services that will aggregate all of your blog feeds by you providing them URLs. Some of these have pretty bad front ends for like I for a while was using Feedly, maybe I forget which one I was using after Google Reader shut down, but the interface was bad. So I would use an app that I still to this day really really like on iPhone called Reader, and my other app pick is the
I
same.
used to use that.
Yeah, it's spelled
You know what? It's like they came out with a new version of it.
Reeder, and they're actually working on an even newer version that does like ads in YouTube and podcasts and other kinds of content other than text. I'm not sure how I feel about that, but it is about the smoothest looking and feeling iPhone app you can imagine. It's like butter, and you just endlessly. I mean, because I subscribe to some what I would call like fire hose blog feeds. Like Mac Rumors is like just trying to get all the clicks for their ad revenue. So it's like, you know, the smallest, tiniest Apple leak will be a full-blown article. There'll be so many a day. So I like that it is very smooth. Like I can scroll through it really quickly and really quickly swipe on things to add them to my Read It Later service, which actually Reader now has a Read It Later service built in. So you can just kind of swipe the stuff you want to check out later.
Uh-huh.
But I've moved on to another app that is actually a paid subscription app, but it is called Reader, spelled Reader, and it is a product in the Readwise ecosystem. And Readwise is the very cool service that will let you plug in your Read It Later services, your Kindle account, several types of different places where you would read something. You give it all of your credentials, and then it takes all the highlights you do across all of those different services, and then it like serves them up to you in a digest. Or if you like automation, like I do, it will also save them into your note-taking app of choice. So like I do have it set up with Obsidian, which is a note-taking plain text app on the Mac, and when it's cross-platform. But they created a Read It Later /RSS app called Reader, Reader. I think I pay $4 or $5 a month for it, and it's actually very good. It is. It's got some light AI stuff in it. It's got some filtering. They're very responsive to user feedback. So like, if it will save someone a tap or a swipe, they will implement it. And it does cool stuff. Like you could subscribe to your favorite YouTube channel, and it will transcribe the text of the YouTube and make it readable. It turns all of your articles into a podcast, so you can like have a voice read them to you.
Huh.
It does like any of the highlights automatically get saved into my note-taking app of choice. So it's kind of nice. It's not as buttery as Reader with two E's, Reeder, but it's for 2 years now. It's been my RSS thing of choice.
Huh. Well, thanks for that, because I've used Reader over the years and I just totally forgot about it. And I'm just logging in now to I have a Feedly account that has all my old Google RSS stuff in it, and that still works. Look at that.
Let me see, like maybe what's a more helpful thing is to actually tell people what are good blogs to subscribe to. So there's a reason to use one of these things.
What I'm reading, the ones I always hit every day. I mean, I'm always hitting The Verge. I'm always hitting Daring Fireball, even though he doesn't post that much anymore. CDM.link. I'm always hitting that one. Create Digital Music, the Peter Kern website.
I do.
Those are kind of my big ones. Every now and then I'll hit up Blackbird Spy Plane.
Okay. I don't know that one.
Oh, it's weird.
Okay.
If you go to it, it's like a hype beasts kind of page where it's just like crazy trends, and they do really good interviews with people. So if you're like, what's cool right now, there's weird stuff on there.
Okay. Cool. My way of keeping in touch with the consumer facing updates to like big tech products is like I do 9 to 5 Google, 9 to 5 Mac, but they post a lot. Like those are the ones that really clutter up my feed.
Yeah.
I do Darien Fireball. I do I do New York Times Music, which is another fire hose. I really like I like MacStories quite a lot. They
Okay.
do good stuff on the Apple ecosystem. My favorite, not necessarily music or tech focused one, is Kottke. He just
Oh, yeah. Kotke's pretty good.
he's been making a business out of just linking. His whole blog is just linking out to other stuff on the web, and I find a lot of really diverse and interesting content that way.
I was turned on to Techmeme. You ever done that one?
Yeah, do you? I don't subscribe to them, but I guess I should.
Yeah, I don't either, but they have like it's almost like a Wall Street Journal kind of style, but about just the tech news. I thought that was kind of a good one.
Oh, here we go.
Inverse.com is pretty good.
Okay, yeah.
Every now and then, at least, like for more like media kind of stuff.
Well, and since Twitter is pretty much dead now, I mean, following
Yeah.
people who blog and just getting their ideas in my feed is important, even though they post generally much less. So, like, I've got your co-author here, Ethan Hines' blog is in my feed here, and so like
That's
not
a classic.
Yeah, not someone who I like really am seeing as much these days through social media. So to have his work here is good. I'll link all these blogs and put them in the notes to this episode for people who want to go click them here. But see, how else would I know that the Delta app is now on the iPad?
Right.
That's right here in my feed. Let me maybe say some other exciting headlines that are new to me so that people see the value of good old-fashioned blogging here. Okay. See, I can learn about pop artists that I otherwise would not know about here. Through the New York Times Music. Let's see. Okay. Oh, there's just so much like Google and Apple stuff in here. Yes. So Microsoft drops OpenAI board observer seat. So no longer do Apple and Microsoft have board seats with OpenAI.
There's a site that I like, and I used to look at it way more regularly, but it's called WeMakeMoneyNotArt.com. It's like dashes between the words. And,
Okay.
it's a little like more pretentious version of Kottke, I guess.
Okay.
This is like weird art projects that are in the news of the art world.
All right. I'll link all these in the notes. So if you're listening, go to your little wherever in your podcast app the notes show up and start tapping the links. I gotta close this out here to move on to a couple lessons, but can we do some segments?
Let's do it.
Okay, sweet. I'm actually gonna change my music pick for the week, and I'm gonna do a callback to something several years ago, which you recommended to me long ago. You recommended speaking of nice websites, nice, pillars of the open web. You recommended the poolside.fm website and media player to me.
Which has become a large sunscreen company now.
Right. They're now the Pool Suite. And they have other things other than the media player, which how would you describe the style of music that this it's like an internet radio website, but how would you describe the music?
Background music that you'd hear at a pool.
Basically, yes. And so I don't know if their expansion into physical products like sunscreen spurred on the name change, or if it's the fact that there's actually an artist already called Poolside.
I think that's what it was.
Probably that was what it was. But hey, the artist Poolside is often on the radio if you listen to poolsuite.fm. And funny. Poolside just so happens to be this is a 4-year-old pick because my son, we just traveled to the beach for a week over here in our area, and he really likes this album by Poolside called Low Season, and it is perfect kicking back by the beach or by the pool in the summer, and you need something in the background. It's exactly that vibe. So I will recommend the album Low Season.
Very good. I was excited that Magdalena Bay came out with some new stuff. They've got a new album coming out called Imaginal Disc, and really freaky new music video that it's like at one point she sits in a dentist chair and this robot like cuts her forehead open and slides in a big compact disc. But Yeah, I don't know. That's kind of a cool band. It's like a synth pop duo.
Sweet. Next up is Tech Tip.
Next up, let's ripping right through it.
Which one? I'm sorry, what?
We're ripping through it.
Oh, we're tearing through it. We're tearing. My tip of the week is so I've started theming my home screen a little bit. So I used to just have like a page of most used and tapped things with a little calendar and to-do widget in the top. I've started to like have a page organized by type of thing. So I've got like that page, but then I've got like a home automation page with some home apps like
Mm-hmm.
the robot vacuum, and then like some like a widget that shows me some of my most controlled smart home things. And then I go to the next page and it's like sort of a, I don't know if you would want to call it like a healthy page or a wishful thinking page, but it's got like some health stats and stuff that it's getting from my watch.
Huh.
But it's also got the Duolingo widget. You know, that green
Yeah.
bird is
Okay.
thirsty. And that green bird's image in the widget gets more and more unhinged and desperate as you go on without completing your streak for the day. Like it starts to eventually, like the face of it will just start melting if it's around
Oh my
5 or 6
gosh.
o'clock p.m. So yeah, I've got my pages organized by
So
theme.
funny. There was a meme going around this week. It was like some big concert, and somebody was doing their Duolingo streak, like at the concert.
Oh yeah, I saw that.
Oh man. I guess my tech tip. I was, just doing a lot of web design lately, and one of the harder things for me is just coming up with like what's that descriptive paragraph that you need for that page. Um, and I didn't realize WordPress has this pretty good AI assistant that can write and rewrite things for you. So I've been that's been speeding up my web design because
Can it
I'm
do
I'm
stuff for
spending
you other than that? Sorry, I cut you off. Does
no
it
it no
like
it mainly is just for writing copy.
okay?
But for me, I tend to get stalled on that stuff, and a lot of times it's almost like I need some lorem ipsum to continue doing the design. And instead of lorem ipsum, I can just say paragraph about how we're the best of this organization type or whatever, and it's like
Yeah.
just make something for me real fast, which is great.
All right. Well, I will acknowledge for our app of the week here that I'm pretty sure I've got 3 recordings I'm sitting on, and I'm editing them all kind of simultaneously. I'm pretty sure that my last 2 episodes had the same app pick of the week. So sorry to anyone who that
Ah.
upset. But I'm going to do this week an Apple TV app, because how often
Okay.
does Apple TV have a good app that's not like HBO Max or something? Or I'm sorry, Max. And this actually ties into our RSS conversation, because I do like to see stuff on the web and clip it to a place where I can read it later when the context for reading text is a better context. But I often find video content on the web where I'm not in a good mode for watching video and I want to save it, but YouTube's watch later feature is a hot mess. Like it is always buried and hidden and never easy to get to because they're terrible. But also, there's times where other videos make sense to also include in the mix. And so there's an app for the Apple TV. It's also on, I think it's on iOS too, and maybe the Mac. It's just simply called Play. And what it is you share YouTube links and Vimeo links and other kinds of links to the app, and then it just creates a little watch list for you. And on the Apple TV, I have it sitting on that very top shelf row of app icons, so I can like when I scroll on top of it, it shows me some like things I've clipped to it. And when I'm in the mode of video watching, which is on my couch, I can go through my history of watch videos. And what it actually does is you tap it, or you select a video, and then it actually kind of bounces you into the YouTube app to watch it. And it's just like a nice fuss-free way to organize that kind of stuff.
Huh. Nice. My app of the week. I'm changing mine. I had a few options. It's like just the Bora Bora environment. It's like my favorite place on earth, and they put it on the Vision Pro. Uh, there's also they made a Vision Pro version of the game Alto's Odyssey, and it's
Oh,
fabulous. It's like a 3D diorama of that game when you
that's
play it on
cool.
there. But I got to go with Ableton Live 12.1,
Of
which is
course.
a gigantic update for a point release. It's I know nothing of the story behind why so much is packed into the Live 12.1 update, but It's got the big finally an auto-tune plugin.
Wow.
And it's a good auto-tune plugin. It's got 0 latency if you want to do live mode, so you can run it like that if you've got a real fast interface. A lot of people use like an Apollo hosting, just like the auto-tune plugin on the Apollo chip. And if you can round trip to a computer with low latency, you can also use this. If you prefer its functionality, it does harmony real easy, does MIDI mode real easy. It's got the Foreman chip. It's like all the stuff you'd want is just right there, and it sounds pretty good too. It's not like Melodyne level of detail, but it's most people not going to use it for that. So, and it works with all the new tuning systems. So if you want to auto tune yourself to a scale that's not in Western tradition, have at it. What else? There's a new drum sampler I haven't spent a lot of time with, but I like the idea of an update to Impulse, because drum rack and simpler is like you can do everything, but it's like so many buttons, especially simpler can get kind of bogged down, where this thing it's like a simpler version of simpler just for drums, that has a little bit of the drum bus stuff in it. It's for boosting, utility stuff that you would do with drums, like saturation, stretching out the transient and stuff like that. There was
That's
another
awesome.
thing.
And
there was another thing it does, and I forget, but it's good. It's a great update. And honestly, like when Live 12 came out, there was a little bit of grumbling about that auto tune still not being in there, and everybody's satisfied now. So that's a good feeling.
Well, and the most important reason to update to 12, at least of all, is that now finally the Mac OS icon matches the same shape as all of the other ones.
Yes, they did fix the icon shape. My goodness. I remember that bothered you when 11 came out.
I was doing like old school. I was like customizing my icons just to get that to match.
That's so funny.
It's been since like 2006 that I did a app icon customization on the Mac.
That is so funny. Yeah, I haven't. I did the whole like. I'm trying to remember what's new in Live 12.1, because a lot of the new stuff, like the chord creation and all of that stuff, the stacks, the strums, the smart arpeggiator that actually updates the MIDI grid, like they totally redid the MIDI editor in this version. So there's just so much that's new, so much that's fresh. Oh, auto tagging. They added auto tagging in the browser, so it can. The browser has the sound similarity search that it was already doing. Now it can auto tag your loops as drum loops or what instrument they are, or at least that it thinks they are. It still doesn't auto tag key, but I imagine that's coming because there's a spot for it. So
okay,
I
that's
might
cool.
hold off on manually tagging all my loops that I want to add, but yeah, it's kind of interesting how it's slowly working that stuff in, but yeah, keeping the spirit of what Live is all about.
Awesome. I've got a pretty abruptly jet in like a minute, so I
Okay.
figure that's as good as place as any.
Perfect.
Anyone who wants to find you, there will be links to all of the many places on the web where you reside. And of course, thanks for doing this with me. I'm so excited to.
Anytime, Robbie. This is a
Talk to
pleasure
you
to
specifically,
to do one of these a year at least, maybe twice. Love it. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Well, hey, take it easy, man. It's good to see you.
All right, man. Yeah, you too. Thanks again. Yeah, just share me the audio when you get a chance.
Will do.
All right.
All
Sorry,
right.
my internet's
I'll give
starting
you
to
the
suck
screen
again.
recording from the Vision too.
Sounds great, man. All right, cool.
All right.
I'll catch you later. Bye.
See ya.
I'm Robbie Burns. Thanks for listening to Music Ed Tech Talk. You can find the show's page, show notes for this episode, and my blog at musicedtechtalk.com. You can subscribe to blog posts through an RSS app of your choice, and you can subscribe to the podcast in a podcast app of your choice. You can now get blog posts delivered right into your email inbox once a week. Please rate and review this show in the podcast app. It absolutely helps. Word of mouth is helpful too, so please spread the word about it. You can learn more about my music and teaching career at robbieburns.com. I'm all over the internet at Robbie Burns or _ Robbie Burns on most social media sites. Consider supporting me on Patreon at patreon.com/musicedtechtalk. All tiers get perks, but even the base tier gets you access to the Music Ed Tech Talk Discord community, where you can chat with other supporters and guests of the show about music, apps, pedagogy, lesson ideas, tech support, and more. It's a fun place to be, and I hope to connect with you there. Thanks to this episode's sponsor, Scale Exercise Play Along Tracks. Be sure to check it out. See you next time.